in order to conquer the challenge of this vice of AIDS. To be specific, last week, I was invited by Uganda AIDS Commission, which hosted a breakfast meeting and a dialogue with the media at Tulip Hotel, and in partnership with PEPFAR and UNAIDS, we had to share audience and a platform of communication with Mary, Jacqueline, and Nelson himself, who was the host. The idea was to engage the media in a pre-AIDS Day commemoration engagement, which was very highly successful. And I was given the opportunity to be a keynote speaker on the same on behalf of Rotary, a responsibility I undertook with dignity and decorum, and I represented you well. So in the course of that engagement, we talked about partnerships, and I felt this was the right thing to do. It was timely, and it was very necessary that Rotary scales up the level of engagement on this very important subject area. So today, which is the World AIDS Day Commemoration Day, I decided to invite them so that they join us and we join them in commemorating the AIDS Day our own way, using our platform, Rotary, and the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak happened to be the lucky club, since this day falls on a day that we have fellowship with the Rotary Club of Kampala Daybreak. So I did engage the authorities within Kampala Daybreak to offer us an opportunity to engage the world using this platform and using the people in the know, in the names of Nelson, Mary, and Jacqueline, for whom I'm truly thankful and grateful for having accepted the invite. So today we are doing that. And in terms of Rotary, you'll be reminded about our new vision statement, which states that together we see a world where people unite and take action to cause lasting change across the globe, in our communities and in ourselves. And in that regard, today, we are uniting with Uganda AIDS Commission, with PEPFAR, and with UNAIDS and the entire scale of humanity to take action and cause lasting change in our interventions with regard to the AIDS scourge. So that's why I found it necessary to get these good friends to share with us from a technical perspective where we are and what we need to do in order to make good. Rotary has areas of focus, two of which are very critical and relevant in the fight against AIDS. That includes disease prevention and treatment, and maternal and child health. And you know that definitely those are critical areas for us to engage in order to play some good responsibility. So Rotary has clubs. We do have many clubs in this country, very many of them across the country, in District 9213 and 9214. And we do have the audiences that we address. We do have the projects that we do undertake. But as we do all that, we need information, we need messages, we need the right packaged information to share so that we are able to make our contribution in the fight against AIDS. And today, Nelson, Mary, and Jacqueline are going to give us a synopsis of how best we can engage, how we can be useful, how we can be productive, and how we can support in this partnership that is aimed at giving AIDS the last blow. We are known to be very effective when we undertake something. The polio eradication is something we've done greatly, and we can be of great use even in this very war against AIDS. So it is the reason that we are here, and I want to create opportunity for the three to share with us, and we are able to engage them with comments, observations, and questions, so that going forward, we continue doing good in the world the way we've done in many other areas. I bring you greetings from Governor Peace, who is in Rukunjiri and is representing us there. And we are here celebrating it our own way and making our own contribution. Thank you very much, and back to you, Mr. Moderator.
Amazing. If amazing was a person, DJ, you represent amazing. Thank you very much for that preamble. And straight away, I want us to hear from our panelists. And I will start with you, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, the Country Director of UN AIDS. We have talked a lot about why Uganda is commemorating Uganda AIDS Day. And I know right now you're in Rukunjiri preparing for the same. If you could, together, in a second, explain a little more why we are commemorating World AIDS Day as a country. But more than that, I would like to hear from you. What is the HIV prevention roadmap? And could you please share the UN AIDS experience coordinating the global commitment towards the HIV prevention roadmap? I welcome you, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, to address us first. Over to you.
Thank you, Frederick. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. I hope you can see me. I turned on my camera, but I don't see it, but it's okay if you can see. Can you confirm?
No, we can't see you, unfortunately, but we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know what's happening. My camera is on.
It looks like it's covered. The camera is covered.
It seems your camera is covered. Okay, I can see your video is active.
It was 1982. Sorry?
You can go ahead, no problem, nonetheless.
Okay. This is a day when we come together to remember to be in solidarity with people still living with HIV. Here in Uganda, we have about 1.4 million living with HIV. We also come together to remember those who we have lost, because unfortunately, as the chair, Mr. Kitakule mentioned, we still have quite a number of deaths here in Uganda that are AIDS related. But we also come together to celebrate because we have a lot to celebrate, and we come together to reflect on the remaining challenges that we have. So here in Uganda, as we know, and I will go into the prevention roadmap. Here in Uganda, as we know, prevention remains one of our biggest challenges. We had 54,000 infections in 2021, despite the fact that the Ministry of Health and the Uganda AIDS Commission have a prevention roadmap, which we've been implementing, and it mirrors the global prevention roadmap. The prevention roadmap gives us options for prevention. So for example, we know that the most effective option for prevention is people remaining on antiretroviral therapy. So for example, the 1.2 million Ugandans who are on ART, if they remain on ART and are virally suppressed, then we have a good opportunity to prevent them passing infection to their partners. We also have PrEP, which studies have shown is very effective when taken consistently Then the studies show that there is between 88 to 90% efficacy, but if it's taken, consistently. But also in the US, I think one study showed that even 4 times a week is just as effective if it's taken. But this has remained a challenge because the uptake is still low. We have the old one, which Uganda knows very much about. You came up with the ABC. So we have the C, the condoms, which studies show are effective, 80%, but these are self-reported. So it's very difficult to measure the exact efficacy because we look at the self-reporting of people saying, yes, I used condoms last night, or I did not use condoms. We have male circumcision, which is 60% effective if it is, if there is saturation in the community, and we are struggling with that in some communities. Male circumcision is still very low. We need to saturate up to around 80% to get any good impact on prevention. So we have a range of strategies, but the one that I really want to talk about to Rotarians is a strategy for adolescent girls and young women. We know that in Uganda, of the 54,000 new infections that we had in 2021, 20,000 were young people. And of those 20,000, the majority were adolescent girls and young women. Reason being, they dropped out of school. So if we can keep the girls in school, ensure they complete secondary school education, then we have a chance to prevent infection to them. And when we were talking with the Mike at the breakfast meeting, Mike Sebalu, the district commissioner, we really narrowed down on the education plus to say, is this something that Rotarians can help Uganda achieve? Because it will have so much impact. It will ensure that we protect our adolescent girls and young women. So we are happy to talk further about that, but let me stop here. Those are the strategies we are talking about. There are other strategies for men who have sex with men for key populations, but I just wanted to narrow down on those 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, for that wonderful submission. I now want to turn to you, Dr. Nelson Soba, the Director General of Uganda AIDS Commission. And I would like to hear from you, what are the critical policy interventions for HIV prevention? You know, we are talking about the prevalence in adolescent girls and young women. And we'd like to know, what are the critical policy interventions for HIV prevention in this particular age group? Over to you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you very much, moderator. And thank you for the opportunity this morning to share this platform, and also allow me to extend special thanks to the district governor, the Honorable Dr. Mike Sebalu, one for honoring our invitation and coming to the breakfast meeting with the press last week, but also for giving us this opportunity to engage the Rotary fraternity. Indeed, after the breakfast meeting yesterday, as part of the engagement of the communities, we were in Ntungamo district, working again with the Rotary Club of Ntungamo. We managed to engage border riders. We refreshed and painted zebra crossings on the highway and the roads within Kampala. So we are aware and excited about this potential partnership, given the deep reach, the capacity, and the track record of Rotary. So thank you very much. Now to the question that the moderator has asked around the critical policy interventions given, especially that group of adolescent girls and young women. Just like my colleague Jackie has shared, although Uganda has had a lot of success, like you yourself, moderator, indicated, we are a global leader. We continue to be looked at, as setting the pace that other countries follow. The burden is still huge. We are part of this very ambitious target of ending AIDS by 2030. And ending AIDS by definition, because many times I'm asked, and since you're going to be our ambassadors, I'm sure you'll be asked this question at all. Excuse me, that how can you talk about ending AIDS when there is no cure and there is no vaccine? So there is a global definition of ending AIDS. And one is that once we have 0 new infections, 2, if we have 0 AIDS-related deaths, and 3, if we have 0 stigma and discrimination. That is the definition of ending AIDS as a public health threat. The people who are HIV positive and are on treatment will continue to be there, because currently we have people with testimonies who have been living with HIV for the last 30 years. Some are coming to 40 years, and you just don't do away with them. So that is the definition. If the communities you engage take you on in terms of how are you talking about. So we've that global goal, ambitious goal of ending AIDS by 2030. And when we looked and reviewed our data, the new infections are still high, as has been pointed out by Jackie and yourself, and particularly affecting the young people. So we've got a range of policy interventions, especially in the form of prevention and treatment. Some of the prevention interventions have been mentioned. We have the ABC. A is abstinence for the young people who are not yet sexually active. We should continue to encourage them. And a lot of this messaging goes to caretakers, parents, those of us in charge of our young people. Share information with the young people early. Let the parent be. Evidence shows that the first source of information really matters. If we delay as parents, as caretakers, to share HIV-related information around physiology, growth, sexuality with the children, they will of course access it elsewhere. They'll access it on social media, on broadcast media. And even when you tell them later, they will always believe the first source. So share with them about the risks of early, sexual exposure, pregnancy, STDs, including HIV, and what comes with it. And they should wait until the time that they are ready. And being faithful, of course, I'm sure that members of the Rotary fraternity would walk the talk, that those who are in relationships will stick, because we found, studies show that multiple concurrent sexual partnerships, if you have sexual partners, more than one, whose status you don't know, who are not your permanent partners, it's a risk for getting HIV. And of course, condom use, but treatment remains, because if the people who are, all people who suspect to be HIV, or all of us, if we take our test, if we know that we are positive and we start on treatment, then the roadblock will have been established and no new infections will happen. So treatment remains key. But there's another package of what we term as biomedical prevention interventions. And this include male medical circumcision. Now, on its own, it's not a magic bullet. Again, we need to tell the population out there that just because a man is circumcised, he shouldn't go out there and think that now he's wearing a helmet in quotes, and therefore he can have sex left, right, and center. No, Male medical circumcision should be exercised as part of other interventions. That man who is circumcised, 1, should know their HIV status. 2, should use a condom every time they're engaging in high-risk sex. 3, if they have a discordant couple or they have sexual partners whose HIV status they do not know, they should use pre-exposure prophylaxis. So by itself, it's not a permanent solution. And then the last policy intervention that I would like to speak about before I cede the space for the next panelist is we have what we term as underlying drivers for infections, because we can give information to young people, we can teach them how to protect themselves, but when they remain vulnerable, when they do not have access, to materials for menstrual hygiene, to buy a meal for lunch, to, buy scholastic materials, then somebody is going to lure them out there, give them a little money. Very often it will be an older male with power. And once they have received money, it's already a disempowered relationship. First, they are young, probably not fully with, the negotiation skills, but receiving money makes it difficult for them to, to even negotiate for protected sex. So that's where we have transactional sex and transgenerational sex. So addressing wealth inequity, ensuring that our young people and young girls, are cushioned against poverty. They are kept in school, like Jackie said, because school is a safe space. It is possible for us to ensure that, we eliminate the new HIV infection. So those broadly is the policy direction and the policy intervention in terms of ensuring that we can achieve and reach our goal of ending AIDS by 2030. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson, Director General, Uganda AIDS Commission over there. At this point, I would like to bring in Dr. Mary Bolgman, the Country Director of PEPFAR Uganda. And it will be good for you to, fill us in precisely, what PEPFAR is and what is this? But I would like to hear a little more, because I know that at PEPFAR, you have the DREAMS program for adolescent girls and young women in trying to address the prevention gap of HIV/AIDS. So we would like to hear a little more. First and foremost, why have you prioritized this DREAMS program? And you could tell us a little more about it. Over to you, Dr. Mary Bolgman.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you also to everyone joining today. And it's a pleasure to be here with my fellow panelists. So PEPFAR stands for the U.S. President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, and it was announced in January of 2003. And so we're almost 20 years into this collaboration and partnership. And Uganda was one of the flagship countries to begin that partnership with PEPFAR to end HIV and AIDS as a public health threat. And the HIV treatment, antiretroviral therapy through PEPFAR was actually first rolled out. The very first medication that was shared was here in Uganda. So it is a long-standing partnership focused on both the care and treatment, stigma and discrimination-free services, because that continues to be a significant driver of HIV, as well as you said, prevention. And my colleagues have done an excellent job of really expanding on what those different prevention interventions are. PEPFAR is also implemented in a bit different way. So it's coordinated by the Department of State and implemented in some ways as well. We support programming through UNHCR for refugee populations here in Uganda, as well as through comprehensive services that are implemented through CDC, USAID, the Department of Defense, DOD, as well as Peace Corps, as you said. And so it's a whole of government approach, trying to bring together the best of every agency so that we can work on each other's comparative advantages and create a highly impactful program. This is done in strong collaboration and in partnership, led by Ministry of Health, coordinated by the Uganda AIDS Commission, in partnership with UNAIDS and the rest of the UN family as well as civil society and social organizations such as the Rotarians. So as we look at DREAMS, it's a comprehensive prevention program, as you said, specifically for adolescent girls and young women. At least that's where we're trying to target reduction of incidence. And we do that in a bit different way. So DREAM stands for Determined, Resilient, Empowered, AIDS-free, mentored, and safe. And it works on many of the structural drivers of HIV. As we work with young women, we know we can't just stop there, that we can't shift a young woman's, her skills or provide some education and expect her to manage then alone within a social structure that hasn't changed along with her. And so we do work on various levels as we look at that change. So we have safe spaces for young women with layered interventions. And what that means is that we provide comprehensive HIV and violence prevention through curriculum-based interventions. So we have a group of young women come together to discuss, to learn, and to really look at practically how do we navigate society, how do we negotiate in relationships? How do we know what is a healthy relationship and what's not? There are lots of gray areas in that. How do we make decisions around sex as that time comes? How do we ensure that both ourselves and our partners are safe as well? Then we also work with the family. So we have parenting interventions. As Dr. Nelson mentioned, it's essential for parents to be able to speak with their children about sex. This is a difficult topic to discuss in many countries around the world. And so we want to ensure that we empower parents as well to be able to have these tough conversations as their adolescents grow up, so that we can be very clear about how, again, we remain healthy. There's also work with parents on how do we manage if there has been an incidence of sexual assault or violence. What do we need to do, and how do we reduce violence in communities? And then more broadly, community mobilization and norms change, so that we look at those underlying drivers of gender-based violence, to gender equity. How do we all come together at the same page where we do view each other with equality, so that those power dynamics that drive HIV, that put one person in the relationship at a disadvantage for negotiating safe sex practices. How do we shift and change that so we're coming to the table equitably? Within the safe space, coming back to the interventions for the young women, we also work on both education subsidies for young women who need that, girls and young women who are still in school, and then also economic strengthening and empowerment. So we offer financial literacy for everyone, but then for those young women who are a bit older and are out of school, working on that economic strengthening intervention so that she can be financially independent, again, knowing that that increases our ability to make choices and decisions, because we do recognize that not everyone has a choice around sex. As we look at the last Violence Against Children survey, a third of young women reported that they had experienced some type of sexual violence. And that is definitely a concern, that this is not always a choice. And so how do we navigate that? How do we know where to access services if something has happened? Post-violence care is impactful. If we go in for post-exposure prophylaxis or PrEP within 72 hours, we can prevent HIV. So ensuring that young women and men as well know that these services are available and how to access them are essential. So it is a whole of comprehensive approach, again, not just focused on adolescent girls and young women, but how do we impact the family and the communities that surround them to reduce their risk of HIV. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much. Many are the aspects that I would like you to speak into, but it is only fair that I allow some comments, some questions from the audience at this moment. And friends, our time is really fast spent. I have strictly 5 minutes to allow colleagues that would like to move on. So if you have a question, I would request that you raise your hand. I will allow you space. I'll take only 3 questions for now, but I know that at the end, at 8, we'll have to officially close our fellowship so that colleagues who would like to move on can move on, but I would request our panelists to stay behind, because we normally stay behind a lot more to address all the pending issues that could be pending. So any questions, colleagues, you're welcome to raise your hand, and I will allow you space to voice your question or your comment. But maybe before I do that, and I will address this to you, Dr. Nelson, Director General, Uganda AIDS Commission, as you could know better our Ugandan case. When is it too early for us to start to disseminate information about prevention of HIV/AIDS to our children? At what age should we introduce this? I ask this because right now, as a district, we are running a campaign where we are enhancing basic education and literacy within our children from nursery up to P7. And BELEF being a buffet, I'm thinking how best can we partner in this? But then we are conscious at what is the age at which we should, talk about this information. Dr. Nelson, if you could respond to that as I wait for colleagues to raise their hands to share in with their questions and comments. Over to you, Dr. Nelson.
Thank you very much, moderator. And that is a very important question. It's a quick question, like you've pointed out. And as Mary also said, discussing sexuality with our children is never an easy subject. But working with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Gender, fortunately for us, we have a framework, and we have developed what is called the Sexuality Education Framework. Although it hasn't been rolled out as widely and as fast as we had expected because of worry from various stakeholders that probably this is an attempt to teach children to have sex, or some people are worried that when you start speaking to children about sex, you will get them interested in the topic. Now, there is this sexuality education framework talks about age-appropriate information, but also culturally sensitive. So it means that when the children start asking questions, they may start as early as when they start speaking. They'll start asking you, "Mommy, where do babies come from?" If they are 3-year-olds, for instance, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, you use the appropriate explanations, you use the appropriate language and words. The older they get and the more specific, the more direct you get. Of course, as you do that, when they get into school also, because of the school curriculum and what they are studying, they're also introducing, the science, the biology, and so on to them. But once they start speaking, then you can't say it is too early. You need to respond to their questions, but the responses must be appropriate for age and for culture. So for culture, mainly, it is which words are you using? What are you calling the penis? What are you calling sex? What are you calling the reproductive organs? And so that's being culturally sensitive, but still passing on the message. So we will agree again on how we will share this information with you, because again, you're now going to lead this and you can share this with the rest of the public. But the message really is, let's talk to our children as early as they start talking, but the information must be appropriate and culturally sensitive. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you very much. Colleagues, I see we are hard pressed for time. I want to beg with your indulgence, and especially to you, our panelists. I don't know if you can really spare us 20, 25 minutes after 8, so that we can be able to delve deeper into more aspects that I have on the plate for you, but also pick a lot more questions from the audience. But at this stage, I would like to pause and hand it over to the president, who can moderate the session to the end, so that we allow colleagues that really have commitments to step out, and we can stay and have a wider engagement. I thank you in advance for your indulgence, and I will turn it back to your amazing President, Edward Mugerwa.
Thank you. Thank you very much, CMP Frederick, for a wonderful job moderating our meeting this morning. Colleagues, Rotarians, Rotaractors, and guests, definitely we have all been in one way or another touched by AIDS. And so as we commemorate this day, there's no better way than hearing from these experts that are at the forefront of fighting, managing, and controlling AIDS. At this juncture, I'd like to welcome none other than our President-elect, Dorothy, to echo our words of gratitude to you, our moderator and panelists. Over to you, P. Dorothy.
Thank you, amazing President. Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible. I'm Dorothy, as said. I take the honor this morning to extend my vote of thanks. I would like to say, together we can, now that we have the opportunity. I'm honored to extend this vote of thanks to our District Governor, Honorable Dr. Mike Sevalo, and the panelists in the House, Dr. Mary Morgan, Dr. Henry Musoba, and Jacqueline Mukova, for choosing Daybreak to celebrate World AIDS Day today. We are blessed and humbled to host you and appreciate the information you've shared this morning. On behalf of our President, Edward Mugerwa, and all the Daybreakers, would like to say thank you for giving us the amazing information on AIDS prevention and treatment. This has opened our eyes, and we believe we shall be the best ambassadors to our communities. I take this opportunity to say thank you to all the friends on call, all the Rotarians, Rotaractors, and guests. And may we use this opportunity to impact on our community, to end AIDS in the world in its right definition by 2030. I thank you all, and would like to say, have a blessed day and a blessed week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. We still have a few minutes before we can say bye-bye. But we appreciate you in advance, our P. Dorothy. May I call upon Body Group Leader Irene, who's also doing our statistics today, to submit those statistics. Jerian Irene, voice is cracked. Jerian Irene, your voice is breaking. Could you share it? Rotarian Irene, can you hear me? Your voice is really cranky and there's a lot of noise. Could you just share it in the chat? Could you just share the statistics in the chat room? instead of reading them out, because your voice is quite unpleasant. I think there is some noise in your device. All right, let us proceed therefore, and I kindly request Rotarian Vincent Mugabo to give us the final toast. The statistics will be shared in the chat room and on our other media channels.
Thank you, President. I believe many of us are standing for the final toast. For the wonderful fellowship we have had, let's toast Rotary International.
Rotary.
Rotary.
Rotary to the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Rotary the world over.
Great. Thank you very much for being with us this morning as we commemorate the International World AIDS Day. As the moderator had requested, our panelists, I hope you are able to give us a few extra minutes this morning. We know that many on call might have a few questions or some clarification that they still seek from you. I therefore would like to hand over to CMP Frederick to take us through the Chimeza session for about 20 minutes. Over to you, Frederick.
Thank you very much again. Amazing, President Edward. Rotary the world over, but Rotary is not over as yet. And I would like to, before I open it up for engagement, I would like to bring in Ms. Jacqueline Makoka here. In 2 minutes or less, I have a question for you. Do you feel that Uganda, friends that have remained, it's my humble prayer that you kindly keep your microphones muted. Thank you very much. Esther Namara.
Let me try to.
Esther Namara, appreciate if you can mute your microphone. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for managing that. Again, I come to you, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, and I'd like you to speak to this. Do you feel that Uganda is effectively contributing to the global HIV/AIDS prevention targets, especially when we talk about the adolescent girls and young women that we are focused on today? What's your comment on that? Ms. Jacqueline, over to you.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Kitakuke. I think I will answer it in view of the data that we have, where we still have 54,000 new infections. Uganda is among countries that still have high levels of new infections. And to address this, I think the Ministry of Health and the Uganda AIDS Commission have elaborated a very clear prevention roadmap with clear targets. If that implementation roadmap is implemented effectively, then Uganda will be on the road to achieve zero new infections, because remember, we are talking about zero new infections and we had 54,000 new infections in 2021. However, we've come from far as Uganda. I think having a 54% decline in the number of new infections is not an easy task. I think we must congratulate the government and the community for this excellent achievement, but we still have a long road ahead of us. And I think to do that, we will need all hands on deck, including Rotarians and everyone. And as we said, keeping young girls in school is a critical pillar of the work that we need to do, ensuring that we expand access to prevention technologies. I congratulate the government. I think it's one of the few countries that has already approved the ring, the vaginal ring, and also is almost approving the long-acting injectable PrEP. This is the right thing to do, and I think we are on the road to get there. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka over there. And I would like to pick a question from the audience. And DG Mike, I will allow you space to weigh in with your contribution.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. First of all, I'd like to thank Nelson, Mary, and Jennifer for having accepted the invite and the great knowledge and information you've shared with Rotary. In District 9213 or Uganda, we are trying to ensure that we keep, we enhance basic education and literacy. That inherently has a component of keeping the girl child in school, primary and lower secondary and secondary. So I think it is an area we can work together with UNAIDS and PEPFAR and as well as the Uganda AIDS Commission. And the moderator happens to be the person in charge of this initiative, Basic Education and Literacy Enhancement Program. So I guess in your other capacity, you'll engage to ensure that this component comes out and stands out in the BELEP framework. Now, I just want any of the three, I want all the three to comment on the following. One, the role of leadership in the fight against AIDS. What is your view? Leadership across board. I wish to have a comment on that. And secondly, where are we in terms of the cure and vaccination? Can you give us some updates in that area? What is the closest that you've come to, or how far are we from the target? Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you, amazing DG. And we'll start with you, Dr. Mary Mulgman, to give response to the questions and that are raised by DG.
Thank you, and thank you for that question. So the role of leadership is essential in fighting HIV and in reducing infection. And I think we've seen evidence of that in that Uganda has been a leader globally, and a large piece of that is political will, that the government of Uganda has consistently identified HIV as a priority and continue to work forward. And this is, of course, through Ministry of Health, Uganda AIDS Commission through the Ministry of the Presidency or Office of the Presidency, but also it's a multi-sectoral approach. And so we need leadership across government to continue to demonstrate that political will to move things forward. And on that note, there continues to be strong bipartisan support for the PEPFAR program through the US government. This is the largest response to a single public health threat in history, and we remain committed to continuing to move forward. So we are looking at long-term sustainability of the program. How do we ensure that we protect all of the gains that we've made in the HIV response? And a significant portion of that is continuing to maintain the high level of political will to move this forward and to sustain. Thank you.
Awesome. I will move to you, Dr. Nelson, your comment and the contribution into the issues raised by DG.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you, DG, for those great questions. Now, the role of leadership is actually key, but I'll take one step back and just for that feedback. Okay, thank you. I'll take one step back and say, who is a leader? First of all, we have, leaders by definition who are in positions, like the president, the political leaders, people who are in certain responsibilities, ourselves on this platform. Of course, for any type of leader, because there are different leaders depending on the space. The head of house is a leader in a household. You know, in the commercial industry, the different entrepreneurs, you may have a business and you're the head of that team. So the first message is that each one should consider he or herself a leader in the different spaces. But there are leaders, you know, like the president, whom we've been fortunate, is very interested in this subject, is deeply informed when you interact with him, and interested because he will ask detailed questions. So he's seeking knowledge. And that is a great example, because that's actually my point, that leaders first have a responsibility to seek information and to be informed about HIV and AIDS, because the people who follow them, if you're a head of house in your household, your children, your spouse, they are looking up to you for information. They will have questions. And like we've said earlier, the first answers should come from you. If you're a political leader, the people following you, the people who have voted you in office, if you're a Rotary president, if you're a governor like DG Mike, who is very well informed and very articulate, those following you are expecting that you're going to share accurate information, relevant information. The second responsibility and role of a leader is setting the example. We shouldn't say one thing and do the opposite. We will confuse those who follow us and will defeat the whole purpose of the campaign. So that is the additional responsibility. If we say we are fighting violence against women, if we say we are fighting inequality, we shouldn't be the first people abusing our spouses, battering our children, you know, doing the opposite of the things that we are preaching. So that is the other one. One, be informed. Two, let's walk the talk. So those would be my two messages. But the next one that DG asked, where are we on cure and vaccine? Interestingly, despite, you know, HIV being one of the longest public health programs, you know, that we've been fighting over almost the last 5 decades, the vaccine still eludes us. The available options, you know, through research, the protection they offer is too low to take it out to the population, because often until the research shows that any product, the benefit of protection is higher than any disadvantages, do you take it out? So work continues. Of course, the other question we've been asked is, how come COVID presented, you know, a vaccine was able to be found very easily, and yet we've taken forever? The two organisms are slightly different, the way they present themselves, and HIV still continues to elude us. And that is why one of the messages is that keep alive, stay safe. We have hope that whether it is 10 years down the road or 20 years, a vaccine and a cure will come. And when they come, they should find you alive. One final comment on cure. We've had, I think, 4 patients now internationally cured accidentally while treating, you know, something else using the gene therapy and stem cell therapy. Now that shouldn't be looked at as a cure, but there is ongoing research around the use of gene therapy, around you know, use of the stem cell therapy, and all of this, the efficacy has not yet been found. Uganda is always part of, you know, these studies, and the policy of government is that whenever an efficacious intervention is found, it will always be made available to our population to benefit from. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. So over there from the Uganda AIDS Commission, Ms. Jacqueline, I know you have a comment to speak into the contribution from DG Mike, and I'll allow you space right now to do so.
Thank you, and thank you, Nelson, for the excellent response on the vaccine and cure. To that, I'll just add that the best option we have now is the antiretroviral therapy, and ensuring that we support people through a stigma-free environment to adhere to treatment. I think that's the message we would request that Rotarians keep sending out, that until we have a cure and a vaccine, we have really good, effective technologies that work if they are used properly. On the issue of leadership, I think globally what we have seen is that countries that have recognized initially in the 1980s, such as Uganda, that HIV is a problem, and there was goodwill, political leadership that was provided by the president, vis-a-vis Kenya that took its time because we were scared that it would impact on tourism, and so we didn't agree that we had an HIV problem. I think until late 1988 when we finally declared it as an emergency. So you can see what leadership does. Yeah, just because President Museveni came up and said, we have a problem, Uganda was able to really mount an effective response and show the world what to do. Kenya, the neighbor, said we don't have a problem, and we delayed because there was no leadership. As well, just Lesotho, where I'm coming from, where I was leading the UNAIDS country office, Lesotho has a political system where there's very frequent change in leadership. And so leadership for the HIV response is affected because of that. And it arises out of its constitution. It's a party-led system, a parliamentary majority-led system. So when parliamentarians cross the floor, the other side has majority, and then the leadership changes. So for example, in the 3 years I was there, I had 2 prime ministers, 4 ministers of health, and all that. Because of that, it was very difficult to push on some interventions. As well, countries that have really good leadership systems and have political commitment have increased domestic financing, provide for the HIV response, as compared to those that don't have this leadership. So I think one thing is, to keep congratulating the president for the leadership and motivate him to even show stronger leadership so that we can end AIDS as a public health threat. Over.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, UNAIDS Country Director for Uganda over there. Before I invite you to really begin to land the plane and give your parting shots, I would like there's a question from the chat section that I would like to pick out. And again, I will let you, Dr. Nelson Musova, respond to this. There's a question from Rotarian Sekamate, who appreciates you all for your endeavors and contribution towards eradication of HIV. But he's wondering that how the hard to reach parts of our country have been reached, have been penetrated. The hard to reach areas. When you talk as far back as Chana Mukaka, when you talk as far back, these people who can't even read and write, these people who don't own a radio. What have we done to penetrate these hard to reach areas with this very vital information, because they are equally exposed, and more so at that? Dr. Nelson, what is your say?
Moderator.
Yes, DG.
Let me add mine because it is related to that question. So how do we keep the discussion and conversation regarding AIDS topical and give it a topic? How do we make it a topical issue of discussion across board, across communities? Thank you.
Thank you, moderator, and thank you for those two pertinent questions. And indeed, they relate directly to our mandate as Uganda AIDS Commission. It is true that we should always, in our strategies, ensure that one, we are reaching parts of the country that are not necessarily, especially in terms of geography and physical access, easy. You've mentioned Chanamukaka, there are islands, and some of these parts, again, happen to have, quite high rates of HIV prevalence. But also, DG has indicated, how do we keep this a topical issue? And I think that is where now the theme of today's discussion comes in, the role of partnerships. Because as you will see, our role is really to identify and say who does what best. Currently, we've grouped our stakeholders. We use the term self-coordinating entities, but really what that means is that we've identified stakeholders, excuse me, and put them together based on their mandate and areas of interest. I can mention like 2 or 3 of those groups. 1 are the faith-based organization, 2 are cultural institutions, 3 are private sector, and 4 is media. And on the policy design, we have a representative on our policy table from each of those organizations. Of course, setting up a structure is one thing, but being effective is the other. So, but through partnerships, for instance, now, I know that Rotary is in every corner of this country. I know that whether we are talking about Kalangala Islands or Vuma Islands, there must be a Rotary Club, there must be a Rotary president. And when I was in Intungama yesterday, the Rotary president was there proudly. He was the one involved in the flagging off of the border cyclists. He was moderating at the function. But we will reach those physical locations that are unreachable. We will reach, populations that are hidden, because we also have populations that are hidden. We have, the key populations, the commercial sex workers, who, because of our laws, cannot be out in the open. But, there are things going on in their lives that need to ensure that they are reached all the time and given information. So 1, to ensure that the information about HIV is widely available, it is translated in multiple languages, and using stakeholders like yourselves, like religious leaders. We've prepared what is known as a pastoral letter for religious leaders, trying to break down and simplify messages so that, every time the religious leader, an imam is reaching out to his audience on a Friday, or a Seventh-day Adventist on a Saturday, or, an Anglican or Catholic on a Sunday, can include this as part of the message. But 2, on the second question of DG Honorable Mike Sebaro, is we cannot, and that the president is also urging us about that we shouldn't keep quiet and wait for just days like World AIDS Day for us to be heard. We should maintain this as a topical issue. So one of the platforms that we are using, in addition to social media, because we know probably about, only 5 million Ugandans have smartphones and are probably able to use social media. But we have more than 300 radios, and a lot of our deep communities are listening to radio. So we want to turn to radio as one of the mediums for spreading the message. We are working with cultural institutions. You know that His Majesty the Kabaka of Uganda has been so graceful, so visionary the last 3 years. The Kabaka birthday run was dedicated to HIV/AIDS. We know the enthusiasm around that. We've asked him to continue. We were waiting to see what the priority for the Uganda Kingdom will be for the next 3 years. We are working with His Majesty the King of Toro. So cultural institutions, faith-based organizations, institutions like Rotary, the Lions, and others is one of the mechanisms that we are going to use to ensure that we penetrate, reach, hard to reach, but also keep the message topical. Thank you, and back to you, moderator.
Awesome. I think our extra minutes that have been allowed are really fast spent. And again, every nice dancer also at some has to leave the floor. So what I'm saying precisely, colleagues, I want to say we must bring this to a close. But before we do that, I want to give each and every single one of you, our great panelists, an opportunity to give your parting shots. And I will start with you, Dr. Mary, to give your parting shots. But as you do that, Miss Jacqueline Makoka called us really that, oh yes, Uganda is really doing and making a lot of contributions in the space of preventing HIV/AIDS. And she made a call that we need all hands on the deck. And I would like to put all hands on the deck. I know that for sure. We need a model, we need a framework. So as you give your parting shots as the PEPFAR coordinator, what are some of the models that you think can work in Uganda to enhance HIV prevention amongst young and vulnerable people? To you, Dr. Mary, you could respond to that and give your parting shots as we bring this to a close.
Thank you. And thank you again to everyone who joined today. The last pieces that I'll just reemphasize is that we need a multi-sectoral approach, that it's not one thing that's going to take us the last mile and HIV as a public health threat. It is multiple interventions and the community working together in order to end HIV. And so that includes both the biomedical interventions that we've discussed today, that prevention as well as treatment is accessible, that it is provided in a stigma and discrimination-free environment, and that the community itself is supportive and has accurate knowledge about HIV. And then also, as we look at prevention, we need to ensure that we continue to work on gender equity for all populations, including key populations, which include sex workers, men who have sex with men, people who inject drugs, and people who are in enclosed settings such as prisons. And that we ensure that we have equitable services for those high-risk populations, and that these are members of our community and that we provide equal care. So with that, I'll close and thank you again for the chance to be on this panel.
Okay, sorry about that. We needed to deal with that. You can go ahead, Dr. Mary. Sorry about that. You can go ahead.
No problem. Did you, was it just the last piece or was it throughout? Should I repeat?
No, it was just the last piece, just the last bit.
Okay, so the last bit was really focused on equitable health services that are accessible in the community for both prevention and treatment. We know that we have certain groups of individuals who are at higher risk. This includes key populations, which include men who have sex with men, female sex workers and sex workers in general, people who inject drugs, and people in confined settings such as prisons. And that these populations experience more stigma and discrimination than others in the population. And so we need to ensure that we have stigma and discrimination-free services and that our communities are welcoming, opened to all, and that we really have that sense of community, that everyone belongs and that we care for one another. And that will truly push us forward in ensuring that we end HIV as a public health threat. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Dr. Nelson Musoba, your parting shots.
Thank you very much, moderator. For me, my parting shot is one of appreciation, and two, to reiterate, the power of partnership, and that we are looking forward to, partnering with you. It's already demonstrating that, given the audience this morning and the power of reach, that we are going to, to reach far, working together, but also your knowledge and previous record. But the message to the rest of the population is that people shouldn't wait that somebody out there is going to take care of them. Okay, the government have responsibilities, but it begins with the individual. The individuals should seek knowledge. The individuals should take care of themselves and their closed ones, and then these other things will come in and complement what has been done. I thank you so much for the opportunity this morning, and I'm looking forward to engaging further and further with you on this. Back to you, Moderator.
Amazing. Great call from the Director General Uganda AIDS Commission there. It all begins with us. We can never give what we don't have. So colleagues on call, we need to get this information before we can be able to disseminate it. Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, UNAIDS Country Director for Uganda, your parting shots.
Thank you. My parting shots, first of all, just to thank you for the opportunity. Thank you very much, DG Mike, for inviting us and for you having us focus on World AIDS Day on the topic of HIV for this meeting. My parting shot is really just to say that, this is a war that we can win. We have the right technologies, we have the right tools, we have political leadership, we have good policies. It's something that can be done. However, it will need us all to engage in the HIV response. It will need us to challenge some of the views that we hold, for example, that impede key populations from having services, adolescent girls, young women from having services early on. We will need to challenge that mindset, and it's not an easy thing to do, but it needs to be done, because until we ensure everyone has access everywhere, in the rural communities, in urban centers, in population groups, we are not going to address HIV. So we really need to challenge, to do the hard work to challenge the perceptions that if we, for example, provide services for key populations, then we are promoting the gay agenda. We really need to start challenging that, and we hope Rotarians, you'll be with us as we do the hard work. And also we need to do the hard work to ensure that girls complete secondary school education and that they have access to services so that we can end AIDS for them. Thank you very much. And we do look forward to further opportunities to engage.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ms. Jacqueline Makoka, the UNAIDS Country Director for Uganda. Yes, not only do we promise, but we guarantee that we are together in this to do the hard work that we have been sensitized a little more about. And we know that this is a country, we must do everything within our means to have an AIDS-free nation and world at large. So colleagues, like I did say, we need to bring this to a close right now, but I will thank you very much for being an amazing audience. And to you, Jacqueline, Dr. Nelson, Dr. Mary, I will certainly reach out to you through my friend Rotarian Vincent Bagambe, so that we can have an engagement at a district level. We are into the space of enhancing and sensitizing basic education literacy among schools. We are working with almost over 600 schools right now, with over 50,000 learners that we are really sharing a little knowledge with and through. So therefore, we'll come to you at an appropriate time, and this will be very, 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 very soon, I promise. So Rotarian Vincent Bagambe, I know you're on call. I will reach out to you so that we can put together a meeting to start us off, a meeting with the Ms. Jacqueline here, with Dr. Nelson Sova and Dr. Mary. So I want to say it's been a good moment, and it is no better time to invite our amazing district governor to give his final remark and bring this session to a close. It's thank you from me. Over to you, DG, to close the session.
Yeah, thank you very much, Frederick. That was excellent moderation. Your knowledge base on the subject was indeed a good point of departure and you leveled the ground for all of us to participate. I would like also to reiterate my appreciation to Nelson, to Jackie, and to Mary. What began as a casual talk when we met is crystallizing into a real great partnership, and we should do whatever is humanly possible to consolidate it and scale it up to levels that will be most desirable in terms of impact. I really want to thank you for the time and to join you in celebrating World AIDS Day. You've been able to demystify it. More Rotarians know what to do, when to do it, why to do it, and how to do it. All they need is information, well packaged, to be shared, because we don't want to distort the communication. So mine is to thank government of Uganda, ministries and departments and agencies that are mandated to deal with the serious issue of AIDS. We want to thank them. I want to thank the non-state actors, NGOs, private sector, faith-based organization, culture organizations, and Rotary is one such organization that you need to work with if you are to realize good results. The take home, it was cross-cutting, keeping girls in school, but to keep them in school up to secondary, we need them to have them in primary or basic level. So let's get them to the basic education and then keep them there up to secondary. And it is at that point that Frederick, who is in charge of our basic education and literacy enhancement program, will be engaging you and working with you to ensure that we get it right at the basic level up to secondary as a strategy to keep girls and to reduce on the threat levels. So thank you very much. Celebrate World AIDS Day in an exemplary manner. As Rotary, we've done so by giving you an opportunity to share. So let's go for gold in terms of the fight. We shall win, provided each and every one of us do our part, do it well, do it efficiently and effectively, do it differently for better results, and do it in a manner that will bring honor and glory to all of us. Thank you very much. I want to sign off and wish you an eventful and productive day as we celebrate the achievements and we ready ourselves for the challenges ahead. Thank you.